Welcome back to New Day on TV3. This is the newspaper review segment. We're just about going straight into the front pages of the various newspapers. Let me introduce my guest before I show you what the front pages are screaming at us this morning. On my immediate left, we have Dr. Edward Kwapong, HR expert and the Chief Executive Officer of HR Perspective. We also have Dr. Ahmed Jinapor. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba. He is on my immediate right. And then my far right, we have Senyo Hossi. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the bulk, BDC's bulk distribution companies. All right, so they are already seated. Now let me let you see what the front pages of various papers have. We start with the Daily Graphic. And the front page of the Daily Graphic says, more gas to flow from Nigeria. More gas to flow from Nigeria. And Francis Agbenyo, project manager at the Pone Thermal Power Plant, is seen in a discussion with Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donko when he toured the Pone Power Enclave yesterday. So we'll be discussing this. And it was also through that tour that we got to know that the barge has not as yet left Turkey. We'll be telling you why. Still on the front page of the Daily Graphic, says 5 CPP members sue government over ECG's privatization. We'll take a look at that as well. Parents besiege Wesley girls to seek admission for children. Stories on page 71. And then also, suit against NPP NEC dismissed. Suit against NPP NEC dismissed. All right, so that's the front page of the Daily Graphic. To the back page now. Back page Daily Graphic. VIP inaugurates classroom block for Obuasi Sectec. And there's a picture there of the Vice President Pakwesi Emisa Arthur, and they are dancing in that shot. To the Daily Guide now. Daily Guide newspaper. Afoko thrown out in MPP case. Afoko thrown out in MPP case. And on the left side, UNDP indicts STL over voters register. And then also the story that broke later yesterday says Shraj boss Madame Loretta Vivian Lamte fired. Shraj boss fired. That's what the Daily Guide is saying. We'll look at that as well. The Ghanaian Times. The Ghanaian Times newspaper. Front page, Pone Thermal Plant ready to start power supply in 2 weeks. Nigerian poses as cop to defraud. And then government compensates farmers for bird flu. On the right side of the paper, 5 arrested for car snatching. That's the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Back page. Police official to assess operational challenges in Upper West. And then also government pays compensation for bird flu. Okay. Then final paper for this morning will be the Finder, the Business Finder, the Business Finder. The Business Finder says, banks reel under economic mess and corruption worsens cost for new businesses. And Ghana records 50% dip in FDI inflows, as foreign direct investment inflows. Okay, so at least those are the major issues making the rounds, and we'll be coming to discuss all of them in a jiffy. We go straight to the Daily Graphic, which will be our first newspaper. And the banner headline says, more gas to flow from Nigeria. And then would extend it to the Pone thermal issues that also came up yesterday. All right, so we start with the Daily Graphic, and the front page story says, Cabinet has approved a request by the Ministry of Power to sign a contract with a Nigerian company for the supply of additional gas to complement gas supply from Nigeria Gas or NGAS and the Ghana Gas to generate electrical power. Measures are being taken to seek parliamentary approval for the transaction. The Minister of Power, Dr. Kwabena Donko, who made this known in Tema yesterday, said the gas in the form of liquefied natural gas would be supplied by West African Gas Limited, another company that differs from West African Gas Pipeline, Ghana's traditional transporter of gas from Nigeria. Let me start with you, Senor. I think this actually is part of...
not necessary.
Okay, but clearly there should be some level of good news for us if we're going to have more gas coming in. But one would ask the question, how are we going to be paying for this when we already have some areas to clear with gas?
I mean, my understanding of the power structure and the gas supply actually positions WACP more as an infrastructure company, not a gas supplier.
Okay.
So NGAS was more of a company that was supplying the gas on the back of the WACP infrastructure. No new infrastructure has been built, to my knowledge, in the past years. And WACP is something that's owned by the various countries and all that. So it's quite a heavy investment. I don't think anything new has been done. But what you may have is a new supplier of the gas. All right, so the pipeline will still be there. The person using it may be different. All right, the recipient here is the same. One of the key things you naturally need at every given point in time is to also minimize the power of your suppliers by making sure you have multiple suppliers. As to whether West African Gas Limited can can effectively compete and meet our needs, like NGAS possibly was expected to do or could have. That's something that's still out there. I know these discussions have been had. I've had this discussion with some Nigerian friends before about the possibility of getting gas within the system without necessarily running the NGAS model. But NGAS being more of an NNPC arrangement, a stage thing, seemed more of a reliable structure. But we all know what the problem has been. Ultimately, are we going to have to deal with underlying challenges, or we keep, trying to restructure one thing or the other? The bottom line with all these things comes to one: we are not generating enough revenue, or realizing the revenue we require to be able to honor our obligations. So even if we change the supplier, we're going to have that challenge. We're still going to have problems. I would want to look at a structure as a Ghanaian that solves this problem fundamentally. If we are not paying the right tariffs, let's look at what is right. If our institutions are inefficient, how do we get them efficient? How do we change the institutions? Right. These are more structural and more important, in my opinion, than changing one person here and changing one person there. If we were paying NGAS as we should, we will have had problems with supply. If no, changing the supplier will not really change much, because if you have another person who you end up owing after a short while, the person would react in the same way. So I think we should rally around with government, give the government the right support, and start getting our institutions to work effectively. If the underlying problem is the tariff, let's fix it. And definitely we also know that another underlying problem is the inefficiency of the institutions that are related to it. And for me, it also fits into a broader picture. State-owned enterprises, how efficient and effective can they ever be in a country like Ghana? And I have very little examples to really refer to as success stories. So I am more inclined to really get to the side of us privatizing as many of these state-owned enterprises as possible, so people can be held accountable. When people mismanage these institutions, when people, play wrong, it is us, the taxpayers, who end up paying anyway. People still go home as they want to, but in your job, at every point in time, you are being monitored, you are being evaluated, you are being hired on a meritocratic basis, and if you fail, you'll be dealt with. But with SOEs, you don't sometimes see some of these things happening as should. So we should look at the root cause of the problem. This is a good news, all right, but it's not news enough.
And clearly the issue of cost comes up strongly, like you mentioned. Doc, how does this sit with you? We should be excited about it, but how much of an excited nation should we be?
Well, I think first of all, let me say good morning to your cherished viewers, and let me use this opportunity to congratulate my institution, University of Education, Winneba. Some of us today we are having an investiture of the third Vice Chancellor.
Oh,
so
okay. Congratulations.
Yes. Yeah. So it tells you how young University of Education with vice. That's the third vice chancellor.
Okay. So we are not interested in issues. We are interested in his prospects. That's what we
I think he's a very good material, and we are happy for him. And I think as an individual, I'm happy for the university.
Great.
That said, Martin, you take this graphic story, and I'm not that much of an expert when it comes to issues pertaining to energy. But you look at the story says more gas to flow from Nigeria. More gas. When you say more, what it means is that you are getting additional gas. And when I listen to my brother and I read the story, there seems to be some kind of disconnection based on what we have on the front page and what the reality is. Because if you listen to the story is saying that, look, we are going to get gas being supplied by a different company, which is West African Gas Limited, as opposed to West African Gas Pipeline.
No, the West African Gas Pipeline is a transporter. More or less.
But whatever
it is N gas
that breaks it. But whatever it is, based on the story as it's been put, it means that we are going to get additional gas, which in reality, as you said, is not a case. It's not a case in the sense that we have a transporter and we are looking at, for the sake of more or less, not being bogged down with one company. Why don't we diversify and look at other alternatives?
Which is a good strategy.
A good thing, yeah.
You know, it's something you must do. It helps minimize the power. It minimizes the power of your suppliers, so everybody knows there are alternatives.
No, I agree, but I'm just looking at the story as it is, vis-a-vis what the reality is. Because when you say more gas, it means that you are going to get more gas to augment what you already have, which means that you are going to get more power. That's what it is. But in reality, that is not a case. and
that would be a matter of operation. More gas. How much are we really getting? How much was N gas already giving us if we were paying? All right. So are we going to get even more gas supply? That one, I don't think the story addressed that. The story just practically is addressing the fact that we have a different supplier.
Yeah, but
that's why I agree with you.
Yeah, no, I'm interrogating it from the logical point of view. I'm not looking at it from the perspective. What the story says, more gas, and more means you are getting more. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So if it is the case that we are getting more gas, what it means is that we are going to be able to generate more power, which is going to reduce what? This whole doomsday issue. And as a Ghanaian, if I see a story like that, definitely I should be happy. And a businessman should be happy. But based on what the experts are saying, what the story says, it's not the case. They are just diversifying what? The source. And I think it brings back to the fundamental question that I think my brother did raise. I mean, is it going to be a solution to this whole issue? Probably not. Because we have a fundamental problem, which is the amount of money we invest in terms of generation of power is not the same as how much we recoup from, from the market. So something needs to be looked at and something needs to be done about. But what is even more important, Matt, when it comes to this, if you look at the graphic story, let me show you something very quick. Look at the graphic story. At the end of it, when we are being told that more gas is going to come, the minister says that payment of bills by varsity students, university students, he discusses it. And if you remember not too long ago, I mean a day or two ago, university students were agitating that, look, something needs to be done, addressed when it comes to this whole bills being paid by them. I thought and I think that government will have to be straightforward on this issue. On this issue in the sense that if it is a policy, if it is a policy that government says, look, university students should pay utility bills, that's what it is and that's what needs to be done. You understand? But when you try to tie in these things, then it becomes a little bit problematic. That said, I would say that, look, it's good government is doing something about this whole energy issue. The minister, even when addressing parliament, it's important to know that, this issue, he went to parliament to seek approval after it has been approved by cabinet. He made certain statements with regards to, one, the power barges that are coming from Turkey being on the way and going to be delivered on time. Then a whole lot of other issues. But I strongly believe that these issues need to be decoupled. The university students paying their... I teach at the university.
Exactly. I was actually bringing that into
I teach at the university, and I happen to have gone to the university at the time that we were the first to be introduced to something called cost sharing. Today, the dynamics and the realities when it comes to university education are different from when I was there. So if government believes that, look, we've gotten to a point in time that students will have to pay utility tariffs, they need to be straightforward, they need to come out and they need to agree with students that this is what We've agreed upon this is what needs to be done, and I think the situation should be so. Instead of this whole business of the vice chancellor says something, I mean, government or the Ministry of Education or whatever is saying another thing, and the students too are expecting something else. If it is documented that students at the various tertiary institutions are supposed to pay utility tariffs, that should be the system, and it should be followed as simple as that.
Well, that is a debate that has gone on for some time, especially since the students decided to go to Parliament. There are those who are saying that no, as students they shouldn't pay. But then, how would ECG and the like also survive?
You see, Martin, it's a very simple thing. The whole thing is that when it comes to tertiary education, right, governments all over the world make it a policy as to whether we want to make tertiary education free or we want students to pay for it. You understand what I'm saying? So when it comes to utilities or tariffs, utility tariffs, it's part and parcel of what? The cost of running tertiary education. Today, as we speak, when I was at the university, I mean, most students live in halls of residence. Yes, but today, hostels have taken over. Hostels. Because the dynamics are changing. Those who live in hostels pay utility tariffs and all those things. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. I'm not trying to make a justification as to whether government has a legitimate case to say that students should pay tariffs. But what I'm trying to say is that this issue needs to be resolved. And it needs to be resolved based on what the two parties sitting. It needs to be resolved as quick and fast as possible.
Obviously, we are not making progress on that side. So I think we should be preferring solutions.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, we need to be preferring solutions. But at the end of the day, my argument is that, look, in today's Ghana, let's be realistic and honest with ourselves. We've gone beyond the stage where government will have to what? Foot utility tariffs at various institutions.
Today I was a student leader.
Yeah, today as we speak, we are talking of most of these institutions, talking about IGF. Intelligent Generated Fund has become one of the bane of what? I mean, management when it comes to public institutions. You understand?
How did the university do that?
We do that because we run other courses.
Let me pick the thoughts of my other guests, and just before Dr. Edward Kwapon takes his bite, let me introduce Professor Cletus Dodonu. He is an economist and a policy analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Okay.
Ghana's finest.
Yes. All right, so Dr. Kwapon, we have more guys coming from Hooray.
It's exciting to hear these. Certainly when there is more gas, there will be more power, and then the shedding or the load shedding will stop, and therefore everybody will be happy. So it's a piece of good news. But the question is, when I saw this banner headline, the first question I asked was, is this not another promise? There have been several promises. There will be power from Atuabo, there will be power from this source, there will be power from that source. And yesterday at 6 o'clock, as I was listening to the news, the Minister for Power was struggling to explain why the budgets cannot come as expected. So why are we making promises every day and we are unable to fulfill those promises? People are losing confidence in the promises that we make, and we should be careful. All right. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Nigeria was threatening, or the gas company in Nigeria was threatening to cut supply to Ghana. The question we have to ask is why? Apparently, we didn't have the funds to pay for the power that had been, the gas that had been supplied. Now we are shifting to another company. The bottom line is funds. Are we going to find money to pay the new company? Otherwise, you go around in another 6 months, this company will also say, well, you haven't paid, so I'm cutting you. So honestly, we need to address the fundamental issue of the relationship, the business relationship, and how we are going to find money to fund the supply that will be coming from Nigeria. Whether WACO or NGAS or whatever, for me, the bottom line is, do we have the money to pay for this? And so we shouldn't go out of our way to promise when we don't have the money, because at the end of the day, it's the money that we need to pay.
Okay. And clearly, I think sometimes I get the impression government may have factored that into their final decision before even coming out to the media.
Absolutely.
And then there are those who are also asking, why can't we empower, for instance, the Atuabo gas plant to show that they can supply, because it was part of the promises they made that system can supply enough gas to run most of the major plants we have in the country. But seems we would need even more, for which reason we've gone to Nigeria. Prof, we are told by the Daily Graphic that government says more gas is coming in from Nigeria. Should we jump for joy as a country? Looking at the fact that we already owe NGAS, we've gone to have some level of agreement in terms of payment plan. So that debt is still there, waiting to be cleared. Now we have a probable new supply of gas. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, thank you very much. I think that anything government says now, we should take it with some grain of salt. Because we have had litany of promises, and we also have a wrong structure of our financial architecture. We have locked short-term facilities into very long-term gestation projects. So as a result, our cash flow is suffering, and the interest payment has started swallowing even the capital budget. We are having interest payment alone around 6-7% of the GDP, and our investment budget reaching slightly less. So government has tightened itself, and any promise one would like to say, do we have the cash flow for that item? If we had it, why couldn't we solve some of the problem but to go to the Eurobond market before we can use it to restructure our debt? So any promise from government at this stage concerning the doomso, we must be careful how we take it, because we have a litany of them, we have not been able to move forward. But some ad hoc is needed. All this time, if you recall, there was a solution or suggestion by one of the experts, I have forgotten the situation, calling for this power bank. Way back, what happened? We are now back to it. But the critical issue is funding. Do we have the money? Because some of the difficulties with Nigeria from the deliberations is due to our inability to pay. So most of the time, it comes back to how do we manage our money? Why are we in a rush to build all the roads today? Come on, you must survive to use the road. Why are we in rush to build schools, which will take 5 years to complete, 6 years to complete before you even start benefiting from the school-going group? About 20 years. These are long-term gestation. If you lock all your money there and you cannot get money to fund your utilities, especially power, when the children leave the school, aren't they going to work? When the absence of the power is destroying companies, where are they going to get jobs from? So if you work out the policy objectives, the policy instruments, the sources of funds, the appropriations of this fund, you try to come to some convergence so that you do not always suffer. You can be very rich and be the poorest person. Because why? You have locked your wealth. And you cannot go a-borrowing all the time because you have to watch your debt servicing and amortization where they have reached.
But Prof, in some of these, some of the other infrastructural promises, they would have to deliver them because they promised them. So that, even by extension, is a problem for the politician. Because if, for instance, they promised you to better the road network in your area, and they are running out of time in terms of the political period they have, they would have to probably, like you're saying, lock the fund there so they can get your vote again. That would be an advice to the politician.
One point about politics is that if we are not careful, politics will keep on spoiling the dish. I think the fundamental focus of any government should be the strength of the economy. So you can do your politicking, but when it is to the detriment of the economy, only to the personal benefits of politicians and policy leaders, then it becomes a very dirty game. So dirty that you lose sight of the principles of finance, principles of public policy, and so on. If you have to win vote and the whole country is being locked into long-term gestation, infrastructure, and so on, when the little things you have to do are not being done, if the public truly understand what is happening, they will not vote for you. You lose the votes. You see, before 1963, before you go and cast your vote, you must have been literate. You must have been able to read and understand the government policies, and a little bit of economics to know where you spend your money and the opportunity cost of that money. If the opportunity cost is so high for you meeting the promises of the electorate, such that you can ground the whole economy to a halt, your electorate will think about it. Unfortunately, since 1963, we have this universal suffrage. Many people are not adroit about the implications of some of the public expenditures we do. And they lock the very economy at one point. It cannot move forward. Is that the best way of winning vote? So I think more education, less talk of politics, more talk of finance, economics, management, so that the country as a whole will have a certain psyche about the politician.
Right.
They cannot always be right. It's good that now we are going to have a vision document. We had it before, 2020. It was relegated to the background by another politician. However, now that they are building consensus across the country and we have our vision, when you are a politician, you win, you have to be guided by the medium term of that vision. And then you can't say, okay, and then people can read into it, oh, he has promised them that he will do this for them. So his main objective had to be in power. Some people get the power. They don't know what to do with the power. Vote them out so that those who can do something with the power will continue.
All right, we want to tie this in with one other story on the front page of the Daily Graphic, which says 5 CPP members sue government over ECG's privatization. And Senor, you mentioned in your submission that a lot of the utilities, or some of the utilities, because of managerial issues, you would endorse a privatization of, if not the entire institution, maybe some components of it.
There's clearly institutional failure, and we've been living with this policy for years. How productive has it been? How effective and efficient has it been? It's totally lost on all levels of efficiency, on capacity levels, on real output levels. We are totally lost on it. We can't keep doing the same thing every time and expecting a different result, especially when the people are not changing. So I do not see us getting out of this if we don't deal with the fundamental and structural issues associated with the power problem. We have an inefficient utility company. We have challenges with our generation. We equally have challenges with the tariff system. All right, these are structural things that can help us get out of these things. Whitewashing, giving a story about more gas. In fact, this story, respectfully to the graphic, it's not their standard. You are telling us more gas. More gas, how much more? You're not telling us much even about West African Gas Limited. Who are they? What gives us that confidence that they can even honor the obligations that this so-called contract is supposed to really place on them? You told us nothing in the story. You know, it's quite disappointing for me on the graphic side, and I think that more information will be required. But to deal with this energy problem, we can't keep dealing with it by just trying to play with some little propaganda here and there. We have structural problems to it that has to be solved. How do we get the institutions that are supposed to deliver on their mandate efficient and effective? If the state system is not working, let's make it privatized so that people can be held accountable. There's a very low sense of accountability with state-owned enterprises, because when they make mistakes, they go home. They still earn their benefits, they lose nothing. It's left with us, the taxpayers, to pay. So fundamentally, we should realize that for Ghana, and our Ghanaian situation, I don't think we prosper right under a state-owned enterprise model with certain kinds of things. All right, it's not social service. Energy is an economic issue. It's something that drives industry, that drives firms, that drives people, and helps the economy grow. So you don't see it as a social function. Otherwise, we fail. To that extent, I don't support what the CPP people are looking for. They started these policies way back. Where has it sent us? Nowhere. So please, they should sit back. Let's look at functional solutions to real problems that we have as a people.
Is it entirely a managerial problem?
Look, you can't keep claiming managerial whatever when you've changed managers, you should have, there's a systemic problem with the government. The model itself is flawed. Yeah. All right, we set up models that look very nice on paper, but we don't really even assess how implementable it is as far as our clear objectives are concerned. I was saying the last time I was saying the issue who bells the cat. We speak about it nicely, but at the end of the day, is it really implementable? That policy decision, is it really implementable to yield the results within the environment you live in? In this Ghanaian environment, it doesn't work. We've been doing this way back. Has it yielded as the results? It hasn't. Right. So don't tell me we change management. Now, how is the management itself being appointed? Is it based on meritocracy? No. So how do you even hold that person accountable? Do the institutions and the technicians there or the technocrats there who have to lead this organization, are they allowed to do their job? No, institutions don't work. So if they don't, let's try and come up with the structure that makes institutions work. And from my experience here in Ghana, from what we have seen happen to organizations like TOR and all the many SOEs that are failing, I only see this sustainable functionally under what you call it, a certain level of privatization. Vodafone is a very clear example. There are many examples here and there. It's not working, so we can't keep doing it the same way.
All right, so just for those who probably just joined us, this is the newspaper review segment, and the next issue we're discussing, we are tying it in with the promise or that we've just been given that we are expecting more gas from Nigeria. And still on the power issue, we are told that 5 CPP members are suing government over ECG's privatization. Just a gist of the story. It says 5 members of the Convention People's Party are legally challenging the moves by the government to partially privatize the electricity company of Ghana. They have filed an application praying the Human Rights Court to direct the government to, quote, cease forthwith from undertaking or continuing any process of any kind whatsoever to privatize the electricity company of Ghana, unquote. And Professor Ajimambedu Akosa is one of the 5 Convention People's Party persons who are suing government over issues of privatization of ECG. Doc.
First of all, I don't know why the heading is CPP members. I mean, it might have happened.
No, maybe they went in that capacity. They didn't go in as Ghanaians or
when you read the story, they are individuals. But
I don't think they'll go there in the capacity of CPP
members. Yes, they can see. Yes, that's the point.
No, but you know, in time, but the Vodafone issue, for instance, it was
that's understandable. That's understandable.
Yeah, but I think, Martin, it's interesting. You read the story. The basis for the suit is, according to the plaintiffs, the sale of ECG will be inimical to the interests of the Republic of Ghana, and the basis of their claim is that ECG is not doing well because government owes ECG $400 million, and if government pays, this issue will be resolved. So it comes back to the issue of, how much is put in and how much is recouped. But I have this position when it comes to the privatization of most of these government-owned agencies. I don't think it was by accident that these companies like Ghana Commercial Bank, Telecom, ECG, VRA were built and owned by the state. So if today almost everything is being privatized because we are not able to manage it, my brother made reference to Vodafone. How come Vodafone is doing well under the management of other people and we couldn't manage it? So will it get to a point in time that we also have to, privatize our presidency? Have we sat down to think about how much money goes in as capital flight? These companies, if they are owned by foreign companies or foreign countries, The money that they will make, they'll change it into dollars and send it out. It's definitely going to affect what? Our city. So I think if ECG is going to be privatized and is owned by a foreign company, and that foreign company will be bold enough to charge the right tariffs, how come as a country we cannot do that? I mean, you hear of most what do they call them, district assemblies and government agencies owning ECG. Why is it that they owe? Because they do not pay. You understand? So I have a problem when it comes to this issue of course, privatization will bring about efficiency. I've sat here and I've bastardized ECG for not coming to my house and I having to go there to tell them, look, I owe you this much for this period, so come and take the money. But I think it tells a lot about our management style when it comes to state agencies. It tells a lot about it because somebody goes to where, because it's a government agency, what happens?
That is basis enough to stringent measures in place.
Stringent measures, agreed, stringent measures. But I do not think that at the end of the day, privatization should be the solution. Of course, let's look at this issue in this way. This is a case that has been sent to court. You understand? The court is definitely going to make a determination on that. But we are discussing it from the spectrum of the broader issue of privatization and ECG, its performance and stuff like that. But my argument is that, look, at the end of the day, I don't see why government agencies or organizations or corporations that are owned by the state are not able to function well, but when they are given to private institutions, they are able to do well.
It's a sense of accountability. That was very different.
Where would you place this blame? Is it it means that those in managerial positions are not effectively delivering on their mandate, or it is a clear attitude that even management, including the staff, are just, they give this lukewarm attitude to the fact that
it boils down to leadership. It boils down to leadership in the sense
that I'm coming level, the company
at every level. If I sit in here, let me just laugh. If I sit in here,
it's a Ghanaian problem.
I'm coming.
Yes. All of us.
No, but at least my brother, it's a Ghanaian problem. But at the end of the day, when these companies are private, take Vodafone. Don't we have the same Ghanaians working there?
But
their attitude change. Their attitude change. But you see, the point is this: if I am made the director general or whatever for ECG by virtue of the fact that I have proximity towards power, or I contributed one way or the other in the political struggle or whatever it is, and knowing very well that I'm not qualified, you are definitely going to have these problems.
That's why I spoke about
you get what I'm saying? You are definitely going to have these problems. So at the end of the day, my point is that we cannot